Hello there, people of the internet. I had an interesting experience with well, I'm not I I don't even know how to describe what I saw. But anyway, I was actually in the next town over and I saw two people arguing about capacity, like magazine capacities. And one of them was a how would I describe them? A liberal, and they were under the assumption that nobody needed a high capacity magazine. Oh, I hear Kevin. Is Kevin gonna start screaming? But they were under the assumption that nobody needed a high capacity magazine. And of course, the guy that they were arguing with, they were like, it's not even high capacity. A 30 round magazine is standard capacity. And their debate got a little on the heated side. And I was like, wow, this is quite the ordeal to watch. But I figured I'd go ahead and I would make a video talking about the differences between high capacity and standard capacity. And to be fair, I don't really know how to make this video, simply because the differences between the two are entirely based off of one's own opinion. And let me go ahead and talk about what I mean by that. Of course, a lot of people are going to hop on the bandwagon. They're going to say, no, 30 round capacities come standard with the AR platform. And, by all means, you are 100% correct. That is the standard capacity that has been chosen for the AR platform. And that is the current magazine capacity that is issued with our armed forces for the AR platform and for our police forces with the AR platform, typically 30 round capacity magazines. Well, originally, whenever the AR was being issued as the M16 rifle, back whenever it was first adopted by U.S. military forces, it had a 20-round magazine. So the 30-round magazine would be considered a high-capacity magazine if we are talking about the original standard issue capacity magazines for this platform. So yes, although 30 rounds has become the standard nowadays, the original standard was 20 rounds, and the argument could be taken both ways. This right here, nowadays, is considered a low-capacity magazine, but during the time period where these were being issued, that was the standard capacity, and a 30 round would be considered a high capacity magazine. So by what standard are we standardizing the standard capacity magazine? Are we basing it off of the time frame that we are currently in, or are we basing it off of the time frame that, has that perhaps the firearm came into existence of? Because if that's the case, then 20 round was the standard issue capacity magazine for these rifles, and 30 round was not issued at the time. That definitely would have been considered a high capacity magazine. And if we are going by today's standards, then let's say for some reason just every manufacturer of the AR platform decided to start issuing out 60 round magazines with their ARs. By that thought process, would those 60 round magazines be considered high capacity, or since they become the new normal, would those be considered the standard capacity magazine? Like, these are just the fundamental things that I think about whenever I hear people arguing about this. I'm like, not only does it not matter, but your arguments don't make sense. They're completely based off of the conjecture that you've decided to create based off of your own opinions. And in this particular case, whenever I hear people arguing about these standard capacity / high capacity magazines, based off of what? Like, that is my entire point. What is the basis that you are going after? Because typically, whenever people talk about high capacity magazines, they talk about anything based over 10 rounds of ammunition, things that hold over 10 rounds of ammunition. And they're like, nobody needs to hold any more than 10 rounds of ammunition. And I just kind of scratch my head and I'm like, hey, you can just, very easily reload that 10 round mag and you can have as much ammunition as you want. Your 10 round mag theory doesn't help you much. All it does is well, nothing really. The law-abiding citizen would be restricted, and the criminal would still be able to do the things that he does. He's not going to care if there's a magazine restriction whenever he goes off and does nefarious things with his AR rifle. But normally the conjecture for high-capacity magazines comes more politically driven rather than logically driven. I want to go ahead and talk to the people who talk about these things logically, and there's a lot of people out there who will call this right here a low capacity magazine. It's a 20 round mag, and they'll call the 30 round the standard capacity magazine. This used to be the standard, and the 30 round is now the standard, what happens if the 60 round becomes a standard? Or what happens if things change and, you know, we get another 10-year assault weapons ban and suddenly 10 round magazines are all we can have, and 30 round or 30 round magazines are no longer the standard? Are they still considered standard capacity, or since 10 rounds have become the new norm, would those be the standard capacity? There's a lot of conjecture whenever it comes to these sorts of things. Or for example, let's say I have a 20 round magazine, right? But in this particular case, I've only got 5 rounds loaded into this thing. So that 5 round capacity inside of this 20 round capacity magazine, those 5 rounds, would that be considered under the standard loading? If this was a standard capacity magazine, if this was a 30 round magazine, what happens if I just partially load it? I mean, there's so much that plays into the ideology of standard capacity versus low capacity. As a matter of fact, this right here is a really good example. My 1911. In this 1911, I have a 7 round flush fit magazine. However, more standard nowadays, you're going to find 8 round what are they called? 8 round extruding magazines. I'm not quite sure what word I'm looking for here, but the magazines that stick out of the bottom of the pistol grip just slightly, so you can fit an 8th round inside of there. So you have more ammunition inside of your magazine. Those are by far, especially for practical handguns, becoming the standard for the 1911 platform. You are finding a standard capacity becoming 8 rounds in the 1911, as opposed to the original design flush fit magazine, 7 rounds. So which is the standard capacity for the 1911? Is it 7 rounds because that's based off of the original, or is it 8 rounds because that's based off of what it is that we're doing nowadays? Now, if your answer is 7 rounds because it's based off of the original, does that mean that you also think that the AR platform is 20 rounds because that is the original issuing capacity, as opposed to the 30 rounds, which is what we have nowadays? Or if you think that the standard capacity AR platform is 30 rounds because of what we have nowadays, do you think that the more common issued 8 round magazine for the 1911 is now the standard capacity for the 1911? Where is it that you draw the line with this particular subject? I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say on this, so I guess let me know what you guys have to say on it down in the comments. Where is that line drawn? Where is it that you decide, you know, this is standard capacity, this is low capacity, this is high capacity, and why? What makes you determine that? Most of your ARs nowadays are going to have a 30 round magazine. However, most of your 1911s, if they're being sold for practical purposes and not just display purposes like this 1911A1, if they're being sold for practical purposes, they're probably going to have that 8th round extended magazine, non-flush fit magazine, and that is definitely becoming the standard. So where's that line drawn? Would that 8 round magazine be considered high capacity, or would that be considered the new standard? Yeah, all right. So now we're kind of getting into the muddied waters of why I think the things that I do with this particular topic. A lot of people will argue one way or another, but it really is just conjecture based off of one person's opinions. Yeah, let me know what you guys' thoughts are on this down below, and thanks for watching, I guess. Like, subscribe, share, description below, link to all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and go check that out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'm sure I'll see you all in the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned.
Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.